Hey, Bias Pixel. Hey, Curious Pixel. So today, you're finally going to cover the vehicles and the villains of Himitsu Sentai Goranger, right? Yep, sure we are. So let's get started then. So unlike the modern Super Sentai shows, there are no giant robots on a Goranger. There are, however, giant aircrafts instead. So let's take a look at each of them. First is Body Balloon, which is the flying machine that the members start off with. This is my personal favorite machine from the show. It's kind of hard to tell my pixel art, but Body Balloon has a dog-like face. This cute retro design feels like in the 70s and I really like it. However, Body Balloon gets destroyed eventually and Goranger gets a new flying machine, the Body Balloon. As a pixel art, I really like the design of it, but honestly when I first saw Body Balloon, I wasn't as happy because for machines, I just have tendencies to like rounder designs over sharper ones. These two machines have weird names and they both start with body. What do they mean? Well, I tried looking into what body meant and I couldn't find anything definitive. But one possibility that I think is interesting is that body might come from the word in Hakata dialect, body, which means very or amazing. If you've went to a Hakata-style ramen restaurant, then you might have seen the word barikata used to describe the firmness of the noodles. Barikata means very hard or extra hard, as in extra hard noodles. But of course, take it with a grain of salt because it's just speculation. I see. Well, what about balloon for body balloon and dream for body dream? I have read that some people believe that balloon is an onomatopoeia for an aircraft flying by. It's kind of like how in English, when a car or motorcycle passes by, they go vroom. Another possibility that I've read is that Body Balloon's name and designs are based off of a bulldog. So get the bull from bulldog and make it sound cool, I guess. Similarly for Doreen, it might come from the word tori, which means bird, and make it sound cooler. And it turned into Doreen. But again, they're all just speculation. Okay, are there any other machines that appear in this show? There's quite a few more. Let's first talk about Body Tank and Body Cocoon, which are two smaller machines contained inside Body Doreen. Body Tank isn't really a tank, it's more like a minivan that has a giant claw thing at the top. I personally really like Body Tank's design because it has a nice balance of being cute and cool. Another vehicle that's contained inside Body Doreen is Body Cocoon. The name cocoon comes from the Japanese word kiku, which means a hot air balloon. It might not seem as much in my pixel art, but in the actual show, this machine is super weird and very psychedelic looking, but I like it because of it. This show seems like it has a lot of vehicles. There are more on top of these? Yep, there are a few more. So Goranger rides these customized motorcycles, green machine, red machine, and blue machine, that are collectively called the Goranger machines. Unfortunately, they're destroyed later in the show just like Body Balloon, but the team gets the upgraded motorcycles Green Star, Red Star, and Blue Star that are collectively called the Star Machines. I personally prefer the look of the Goranger machines over the Star Machines because they have more consistency in their designs. But yeah, these guys are pretty much just used as a method of transportation, so they might not stand out as much in the actual show, but they definitely appear quite often. As a side note, the Goranger machines, the Star Machines, and the Body Tank have been made from actual existing vehicles, which I would like to briefly talk to you about. But just so you know, I'm not really into cars or motorcycles. I only enjoy looking into them if they're in a tokusatsu show so that I can understand a little more about the show. Anyways, Red Machines and Red Star are based on Suzuki's motorcycle GT750, which is apparently Suzuki's first ever large-sized motorcycle. Blue Machine, Green Machine, Blue Star, and Green Star are based on Suzuki's motorcycle GT380 with a sidecar attachment. Body Tank was a tricky one to find. Initially, I believed the Japanese Wikipedia where it said that Body Tank was made from a K-car. What the heck is that? Well, a K-car is a category of really small cars that are popular in Japan. The K-cars look like toys and they're really cute in my opinion. So yeah, it's written on the Japanese Wikipedia that the Body Tank was made from a K-car, and this information apparently came from a book about Goranger that was released in 1988. but I found an information that was more convincing to me. I happened to come across a blog that took pictures from a June 5th, 1976 issue of a monthly car magazine called Driver. And in there, they actually had a section talking about cars used in tokusatsu shows, and one of them was a Varitank. The journalist seemed to have actually rode the Varitank, and in the article, it was explained that the base car is the Nissan Sunny Cab. So yeah, considering that this article is written while Goranger was still airing and that the journalist wrote the actual vehicle, I'm leaning toward the info that Varitank was made from a Nissan Sunny Cab and not from a K-car. And as a final side note, if Varitank is indeed made from the Nissan Sunny Cab, I think it's interesting that Suzuki is credited during the ending theme song, but not Nissan. I think this is because the motorcycles were rented from Suzuki, while the Nissan Sunny Cab was most likely a privately owned vehicle that the studio broke apart to create the Varitank. So yeah, we've covered all the vehicles in the show now. Alrighty then, how about we move on to the villains then? Sure, so the Black Cross Army is the evil organization of this show. The Japanese name for them is Kurojuji-gun, but I'll just refer to their translated English name. When I first mentioned about the Black Cross Army, I said that they wanted to rule the world, but I was wrong. Their goal is to destroy the world and eradicate humanity. And don't ask why they want to do this, because just like with many of the other 1970s tokusatsu shows, evil organizations want to destroy or rule the world for no reason aside from them being simply evil. From the top, the organization is composed of the Führer, the executives, the masked henchmen, and the mob soldiers Zolder. Let me first talk about Zolder. I personally really like mob enemies in tokusatsu shows. I believe the feel of the show is determined by the design of these mob enemies because they come out the most often. In the case of Zolder, their design becomes a reminder about a spy and the militaristic aspect of a Goranger, no matter how comical and ridiculous the show gets later on. Next is the executives and the masked henchmen. Just like the heroes, the executives and the henchmen were masked, which is why all of their names are something kamen, which kamen means mask. However, this doesn't mean that the show ever reveal who's under the mask or anything. They're basically just humanoid monsters that wear interesting, sometimes ridiculous masks. Anyways, I'm only going to cover the executives because they're pretty much the same as the masked henchmen aside from their higher position in the organization. The four executives are Nichirin Kamen, Tetsujin Kamen, Hinoyama Kamen, and Golden Kamen. Let's take a look at each of them. The first executive is Nichirin Kamen, who is in charge of destroying Africa. Nichirin is an uncommon way to refer to the sun, so his name can be translated as the Sun Mask. I remember him mainly for being a jerk, and kind of pathetic. I personally like these type of villains though, because they feel more human compared to a villain that's just cool and confident. The second executive is Tetsujin Kamen, who is in charge of destroying Central Asia. Tetsu means iron and Jin means human, so he's the Iron Man mask. I remember him being cold and sadistic. I like that all the henchmen during his arc were all based on metallic objects. I guess it was easier to have a thematic henchman working under him compared to the other executives. The third executive is Hinoyama Kamen, who is in charge of destroying Northern Europe. Hi means fire and Yama means mountain, so he's basically the mountain of fire mask or a volcano mask. Although I do want to mention that the word Kazan is used more commonly to refer to a volcano, but I think the studio decided to go with Hinoyama instead because Hinoyama Kamen sounds way better than Kazan Kamen. Anyways, I primarily remember him for two things. One, he kept summoning this giant cannon fortress and destroyed countless cities and eagles bases with it, which was pretty awesome. Another thing that I remember him for was how he was defeated because it was just so ridiculous. So basically this is what happened. Goranger activates their final attack, Goranger Hurricane, and the bomb that they use turns into an egg. Then Hinoyama Kamen puts the egg into his volcano, cooks, and eats it, and then explodes and dies. That makes no sense. Yeah, so last time when I spoke about Goranger, I didn't explain about their final attacks. There are two final attacks, Goranger Storm and Goranger Hurricane. Goranger Storm is a cool attack, but I don't have much to say about it, but Goranger Hurricane, on the other hand, is ridiculous. The usual flow of the Goranger Hurricane is the bomb first transforms into something random, and then the henchman has a short interaction with it before it explodes. It's so random and so stupid. I love it. No matter how serious a Goranger can get, the Goranger Hurricane is just so silly that it just makes the entire show silly. Honestly, I mean, it's one of my favorite final attacks ever. Anyways, moving on to the fourth executive, Golden Common. Sadly, I really don't remember much about him. He looks cool and I remember his existence at least, but I literally have nothing to say about him. Even with his name, I have nothing to say because it's just the English word, golden. And finally, let's talk about the leader of the Black Cross Army, the Führer. The pixel art got kind of big with him because he is in fact pretty big compared to everyone else. The Führer is actually an alien from outer space and has a ridiculous weakness, which is the Cassiopeia X-ray. Oh, what the heck is that? Honestly, don't worry about it because it's just a made-up thing that suddenly came up in the final episode. But the ridiculous part has to do with how this Cassiopeia X-ray is related to the names of the Goranger. Take Ka from Kaijo, Shi from Shinmei, O from Oiwa, Pe from Piggy, and A from Asuka. Put it all together and it spells Cassiopeia. So the members of Gorangers were the panacea to the evil space ruler all along. Yes, that really makes no sense. Yeah, I agree. But by the show's end, the enemies have been defeated by other ridiculous means like drinking chicken soup, taking an eye exam, receiving Buddha's statue as a gift, eating boiled egg, etc. that honestly, I think at this point, by the end, the whole Cassiopeia X-ray is one of the less random ways an enemy was defeated. So I don't think you should really think about it. As you can see by now, Goranger is a comical show with ridiculous moments, and I hope you understand why I mentioned when we first talked about Goranger that the sudden serious tone shift during some episodes felt a bit jarring for me. Yeah, I think I get it now. Goranger seems a lot weirder than I expected, but I'll check it out someday. Well, I guess I'll see you again when I get curious about another show. Well, take care. Okay, sounds good. See ya!